For 30 years, no one knew who murdered 15-year-old Kristy Wesselman. No witnesses, no leads, no clues. But one tiny piece of evidence, frozen since 1985, suddenly lit up the FBI database, pointing straight at a man no one had ever suspected. Kristy Wesselman was born around 1970, a date estimated from her age at the time of her death in 1985. She grew up in Glen Ellen, Illinois, a quiet suburban community where families knew their neighbors. Children walked familiar routes, and local stores sat only a short distance from residential streets. Kristy lived with her mother, who later described her as responsible, warm, and deeply loved. Although limited information exists about her earliest years, what is documented portrays a girl firmly rooted in her community and surrounded by people who recognized her kindness and energy. As she entered her teenage years, Kristy became known for her involvement in school activities. She was a popular athlete and earned the trust of her classmates, eventually being elected president of her high school freshman class. Those who remembered her described a confident and active teenager who approached life with sincerity and enthusiasm. She represented the type of student who balanced academics, athletics, and friendships with ease, reflecting the supportive environment in which she was raised. By 1985, Kristy's life followed the steady rhythm typical of many young people in Glen Ellen. She walked to nearby stores, interacted comfortably with residents, Kristy as she was known, an active, well-liked teenager whose life reflected her environment and the people around her. This foundation leads directly into the events of July 21, 1985, the day her life abruptly changed. On Sunday, July 21, 1985, Kristy Wesselman planned to spend a quiet afternoon with her mother, watching old movies together at home. Before settling in, her mother asked her to walk to a nearby store and buy a candy bar. She reminded Kristy to be careful, expecting her to return within minutes. Kristy left their Glen Ellen home and headed toward the small store she regularly visited, intending to pick up a soda and chocolate for both of them. When the first half hour passed without her return, her mother assumed Kristy might have run into friends. As more time went by, that assumption shifted into growing concern. With no cell phones available, her mother had no way to reach her and began calling Kristy's friends, hoping someone had seen her. Each friend gave the same answer. None of them had met her that day. As evening approached, worry turned into fear. Kristy's mother searched the neighborhood herself, walking the same streets Kristy would have taken, but saw no sign of her daughter. Hours continued to pass without progress. By 1:50 a.m., unable to find her and increasingly panicked, she contacted the police. Officers began reconstructing Kristy's last confirmed movements. The store clerk, who knew her well and had babysat her in the past, confirmed she came in around 4 p.m. He recalled her picking up chocolate bars and appearing completely normal. Other witnesses also remembered seeing her at the store, but none knew where she went after leaving. The police expanded their search through the night, checking streets, open lots, and surrounding areas. Despite their efforts, no clues surfaced. As dawn approached, the sense that something was terribly wrong deepened, and the search continued with greater urgency. After an entire night of searching produced no clues, investigators continued their efforts into the next morning. A new team of officers took over by midday, hoping fresh eyes might reveal something earlier searches had missed. One officer suggested retracing the route Kristy likely took from the store to her home, a shortcut often used by local children. The narrow path cut through a vacant field covered in tall grass. As the officer followed the trail, something unusual in the grass caught his attention. Moving closer, he pushed through the overgrowth and discovered a human body lying only a few yards from the path. It was Kristy. He immediately radioed for backup, and the area was secured while the medical examiner's office was notified. the medical examiner confirmed that Kristina had suffered 8 stab wounds and showed clear signs of sexual assault. A biological sample belonging to the perpetrator was collected, but DNA testing in 1985 was still in its early stages. Investigators could not analyze the sample, so it was stored for future use. Forensic teams searched the scene for evidence that might explain what had happened. They found no footprints, no belongings, and no physical clues. Kristina's pearl ring, which her mother said she had worn that day, was missing. Detectives believed the killer may have taken it and instructed officers to monitor local pawn shops. Despite a backyard barbecue occurring nearby and a gas station employee working within sight of the field, no one reported hearing or seeing anything unusual. The attacker acted without drawing attention, leaving investigators with almost nothing to work with on that day. In the days following the discovery of Kristina's body, investigators focused on identifying anyone who might have had contact with her or reason to harm her. Detectives began by interviewing all men known to Kristina, including acquaintances, neighbors, and individuals who had interacted with her family. They also looked into people in the surrounding area with violent criminal histories, hoping a prior offender might match the nature of the crime. None of the men questioned showed any connection to the attack, and no early suspect aligned with the available evidence. Police repeatedly canvassed the neighborhoods around the field, speaking to residents who lived near the crime scene. Officers also gathered statements from individuals who had used the same shortcut path during the estimated time of the murder. Despite the number of people who passed through the area that day, no witness reported seeing anything unusual. The family hosting a backyard barbecue near the field and the gas station employee working close by both stated they noticed nothing suspicious. Investigators considered the possibility that Kristina might have known her attacker, which could explain the absence of screams or visible struggle. They also recognized the possibility of a fast, controlled attack carried out in a way that minimized noise. Leads came in from various places across the country, and detectives followed each one, searching for any connection. Pawnshops were monitored closely for Kristina's missing pearl ring, but it never appeared. Months turned into years, and every lead ended in a dead end. Physical evidence was limited, and DNA technology was still unusable for the case. As 1987 approached, the investigation began drifting toward cold case status, leaving both the family and investigators increasingly frustrated. By 1988, DNA technology had advanced enough for investigators to revisit Kristina's case with new tools. Detectives began collecting DNA samples from every individual who had previously been considered a potential suspect. One by one, the samples were processed, and none matched the biological evidence preserved from Kristina's assault. Among the individuals approached was Dana Henry, a 34-year-old man who lived near the field where Kristina's body had been found. Unlike the others, Henry refused to provide a DNA sample, immediately raising suspicion among investigators. Detectives sought a court order to compel his compliance. Henry appeared at the hearing, repeatedly insisting he was innocent and had no involvement in the crime. However, his refusal to cooperate led the judge to charge him with contempt of court. He was taken into custody and held in a local jail cell for several days. Eventually, under mounting pressure and without any alternative, Henry agreed to provide a sample. When the results came back, his DNA did not match the perpetrator's, clearing him completely. Although proven innocent, the consequences of the ordeal were devastating for Henry. He later revealed that he had been held without clothing during his confinement, a humiliating experience that deeply affected him. He also spent nearly $50,000 in legal fees, eventually mortgaging his home, which he later lost. His relationships suffered as many friends and family members distanced themselves despite his innocence. Even after being cleared, some people continued to believe he was guilty. Henry's lawsuit against the police did not succeed, and the emotional and financial damage remained. Despite the major DNA initiative, the investigation made no progress, and Kristina's case remained unsolved. In 1989, Kristina's case briefly resurfaced because of a man named Willis, who began contacting her family with what he claimed were meaningful tips about the killer's identity. His messages continued for nearly 4 years, each time presenting new names or theories he believed were connected to the murder. Police investigated every lead he provided, but none offered useful information. All of his claims were eventually deemed irrelevant or entirely incorrect, creating additional emotional strain for a family already struggling with the loss of their daughter. As his behavior persisted, Kristina's family filed a formal complaint. A judge responded by issuing a restraining order, prohibiting Willis from contacting them again. After the order, police investigated Willis directly to determine whether his unusual involvement indicated a deeper connection to the crime. Their review found no evidence linking him to Kristina's murder, and he was dismissed as a suspect. With no new developments, the investigation gradually slowed. Detectives continued occasional reviews of the case, rechecking earlier statements and following up on tips that surfaced, but no new information emerged. The limited physical evidence and the lack of technological tools made it increasingly difficult to find progress. In 2000, investigators uploaded the preserved biological sample from Kristina's crime scene into the FBI's National DNA database, hoping new technology would finally reveal a match. But the system returned nothing. With no leads and no suspects, the case slipped deeper into cold case status, leaving Kristina's family and the investigators facing a long, painful wait. That changed in 2015 when DuPage County detectives received a sudden notification. The DNA profile from Kristina's case had matched a newly added entry. The match belonged to Michael Jones, a 62-year-old man from Champaign, Illinois, whose DNA had been submitted after a felony domestic battery conviction. Ironically, the 2002 law requiring DNA collection had been influenced in part by the difficulty of solving Kristina's murder. Investigators discovered that Jones had never appeared on their radar, yet his history was deeply alarming. His record included assaults in the 1970s, a rape and kidnapping for which he served only 6 years, multiple restraining orders, and troubling behavior around younger relatives. They also learned that he often took long solo motorcycle trips and regularly visited family near Chicago, meaning he could have easily passed through Glen Ellen unnoticed. When questioned, Jones denied ever being in the area and claimed he had never seen Kristina. A fresh DNA sample removed any doubt. On September 18, 2015, he was arrested for her murder. The trial began in 2018. Rather than face a full trial, Jones pleaded guilty in exchange for a reduced sentence and offered no explanation for the crime. He received 80 years in prison, with parole eligibility no earlier than 2095. Kristina's family expressed relief but also frustration, especially her mother, who believed Jones's early release in 1983 allowed him the chance to attack her daughter. The case also resurfaced old pain for Dana Henry, the man wrongly suspected in the late 1980s. He attended the trial, later saying the accusations had damaged his life permanently, and he never received an apology. With the conviction, a decades-long pursuit finally ended. DNA technology and persistent investigative work had closed a case the community never forgot.